He is one of the most explosive right-backs the world has ever seen. A player who came from nothing, from the working-class streets of Getafe, Spain, where his Moroccan immigrant parents scraped together a living just to keep their family afloat, and turned himself into a global football icon. Achraf Hakimi, the man who helped Morocco reach the World Cup semi-finals for the first time in history.
Fans erupted on Saturday as Morocco wrote World Cup history.
The man who won the Champions League with Paris Saint-Germain. The man widely considered the best right-back on the planet in 2025. But right now, in early 2026, it isn't his goals or his assists or his sprint speed that people are talking about. It's something far darker. Allegation.
The Paris Saint-Germain defender will face trial over allegations
that has been hanging over him since February 2023 has now officially been sent to trial. His name is in the headlines for all the wrong reasons, and the football world doesn't know what to think. So let's go back to where this all started, because to understand how serious this moment is, you have to understand how high Hakimi had climbed and just how far this fall could go. Achraf Hakimi was born on November 4th, 1998 in Madrid, Spain. His father, Hassan Hakimi, came from Ouedzem, a small town in Morocco's Khouribga province. His mother, Saïda Mo, came from Ksar el Kebir in northern Morocco. They had both moved to Spain in search of better opportunities, settling in Getafe, a working-class suburb on the southern edge of Madrid. His father sold items on the street. His mother worked as a cleaner. Life wasn't easy, but Achraf found football, and football became his way out. He joined Real Madrid's famous youth academy, La Fábrica, in 2006 at just 8 years old, after playing for a local club in his neighborhood. For over a decade, he worked his way through every youth level the club had. By 2016, at 17, he was already playing for Real Madrid Castilla, the reserve team, and in October 2017, at 18 years old, he made his senior debut for Real Madrid, coming on at half-time in a La Liga win over Espanyol. Just 2 months later, he scored his first goal for the first team in a 5-0 demolition of Sevilla. He was on his way. To get regular playing time, Real Madrid sent him on loan to Borussia Dortmund in Germany in 2018. That 2-year loan changed everything. Hakimi became a completely different player in the Bundesliga. Electric pace, constant overlapping runs, goals, assists, and a technical ability that scared defenders everywhere. He scored 12 goals and registered 17 assists across 74 appearances for Dortmund. When he returned, clubs across Europe were fighting over him. Inter Milan won that battle, signing him permanently in July 2020 for around €40 million. At Inter, under Antonio Conte, Hakimi was part of the team that ended an 11-year league drought, winning the Serie A title in 2021 with 91 points. He contributed 7 goals and 8 assists in Serie A that season alone. He was dazzling, and he was only 22. Just months after winning the Scudetto, Paris Saint-Germain came calling, and this time the fee was €60 million. He packed his bags for Paris. At PSG, Hakimi became one of the most important players in League One history. He won 4 consecutive league titles. He became the team's vice-captain. He scored important goals in the Champions League. And then, in 2025, he did the one thing PSG had always dreamed of. He helped them win the UEFA Champions League for the first time ever. He scored the opening goal in the final, a 5-0 thrashing of his former club Inter Milan. In that same year, PSG manager Luis Enrique called him the best right-back in the world. He won the Marc Vivien Foé Award as the best African player in League One. He was among the 30 players shortlisted for the Ballon d'Or. He extended his contract with PSG until 2029, reportedly earning around €70 million over that new deal, making him the highest-paid fullback in the world. By any measure, this was a career at its absolute peak. And then came the case that changed everything. On the night of February 24th to 25, 2023, a 24-year-old woman, whose name has been changed in media reports to Emma, traveled by taxi to Hakimi's residence in Boulogne-Billancourt, a suburb west of Paris. The taxi had been ordered and paid for by Hakimi himself. Emma had met Hakimi on Instagram in January 2023. They had been exchanging messages for about a month before she agreed to meet him in person. That night, she was nervous. She messaged her friend, Jade, throughout the ride, saying she felt stressed and wanted to go back home, but she went anyway. Hakimi's apartment was a 3-story, 300-square-meter property that he rented for €18,000 a month. His then-wife, the Spanish-Tunisian actress Hiba Abouk, was reportedly on holiday in Dubai with their 2 young sons at the time. Emma later told investigators that once she was inside, things escalated quickly and without her consent. She sent real-time messages to her friend Jade describing what was happening, first saying he grabbed her and was being pushy, then writing that she had told him she was not like that. At 2:19 in the morning, she sent Jade a message saying she had been She said she managed to push him away, left the apartment, sat on a bench outside, and waited 13 minutes for Jade to arrive and pick her up. Later that same day, February 25th, Emma went to a police station in Nogent-sur-Marne, a suburb southeast of Paris. She filed what is known in the French judicial system as a main courant, an official written report of events, without formally pressing charges. She said she feared repercussions and media attention if she went further. Despite this, the prosecutor's office in Nanterre decided to open an investigation anyway. Just a few days later, on March 3, 2023, Hakimi was questioned by investigators and formally given preliminary charges of rape by an investigating judge. He was placed under judicial supervision and banned from contacting the alleged victim. He was not placed in custody and was allowed to continue living his normal life, including playing football. Under French law, preliminary charges at this stage mean investigators have strong enough reason to suspect a crime was committed, but they are giving themselves more time to look into it before deciding whether to take the case further. Hakimi immediately and firmly denied everything. His lawyer, Fanny Collin, said her client strongly denies the accusations and described the complaint as an attempted extortion, what the French call racketeering. Collin pointed to WhatsApp messages between Emma and Jade, in which Jade had written, while Emma was in the Uber on the way to Hakimi's home, things like, "Try to get the codes and everything," and "We're gonna rip him off," and "We're girls from the hood." Emma's side said these messages were a joke, meant to help calm her nerves before the meeting. Hakimi's side called it proof of a setup. PSG stood behind their player publicly. The club said it supports the player, who has firmly denied the accusations and trusts the justice system. His then wife, Hiba Abouk, broke her silence about a month later, in late March 2023, stating that she and Hakimi had actually already decided to separate before the allegations became public. She added, "In my life, I have always been and will always be on the side of the victims." The divorce proceedings that followed became their own separate story, including the widely reported revelation that Hakimi appeared to own no personal property, as everything was registered in his mother's name, leaving Abouk with no financial settlement from the asset division. For months, the investigation continued quietly behind closed doors. Hakimi kept playing, he kept winning, he got extended at PSG, he won the Champions League. Life on the pitch went on as if nothing was happening, but the investigation was moving forward. It is worth pausing here for a moment, because this is exactly the kind of contradiction that sits at the heart of so many cases involving high-profile athletes. On one side, you have a world-class footballer doing the greatest things of his career, lifting the Champions League trophy, scoring in the final, being hailed as the best in his position on earth. On the other side, behind closed doors, investigators were quietly building a case against him. Journalists were digging, a young woman was waiting, and the gap between the image the public saw and what was actually unfolding legally could not have been wider. That is the strange reality of how these cases work. The spotlight stays on the football, the legal process works in the shadows until it doesn't. On August 1st, 2025, more than 2 years after the initial complaint, the Nanterre prosecutor's office made a major move. They formally requested that the investigating judge refer Hakimi's case to a criminal court. In a statement, the prosecutor's office said it was now up to the investigating magistrate to make a decision. The request had been signed by prosecutor Hervé Lolique, who, after reviewing the case file, concluded that Emma's account, that she had been digitally penetrated against her will after a consensual kiss, was credible enough to warrant a trial. According to reports from Le Monde, which obtained a copy of the prosecution's closing argument, a number of key elements supported this conclusion. First, there were the real-time messages Emma sent to Jade during the incident, which showed a clear and sudden change in her state of mind. The prosecution noted that the timing and content of those messages was consistent with what she told police and investigators afterward. Second, there was the testimony of a separate woman who had visited Hakimi's apartment earlier that same night, between 11:10 p.m. and 12:15 a.m. before Emma arrived. That woman, who met Hakimi through a dating app, told investigators that Hakimi had kissed her, touched her chest, rubbed against her, and started to unbutton her pants, but stopped when she told him she didn't want to have sex. Hakimi's defense used this to argue he respects consent, but the prosecution argued it revealed a pattern, showing Hakimi's clear desire to have sex that night under circumstances very similar to those Emma described. Third, and perhaps most controversially, there was the testimony of Kylian Mbappé. According to reports by French sports newspaper L'Équipe, when Mbappé was questioned as a witness by investigators on April 14, 2023, he reportedly said Hakimi told him there had been mutual caresses on intimate parts during the encounter with Emma. The prosecution argued that the description recollection didn't match what Hakimi had told investigators, that they had only shared 4 kisses and nothing more. Hakimi later tried to explain the contradiction by saying that when he said intimate parts to Mbappé, he meant the back, the neck, or the hair, not the genitals. The prosecution found this explanation unconvincing. Hakimi's lawyer pushed back, calling Mbappé's statement consistent with her client's version and suggesting the prosecution should have questioned Mbappé again if they had doubts. Mbappé's representatives declined to comment publicly on the ongoing case. Hakimi broke his public silence in September 2025, sitting down for an interview with French television channel Canal+. It was the first time he had spoken openly about the case. He said it was the hardest thing that's ever happened to me. He spoke about his children, his 2 young sons, Amin and Naim, saying it hurt, knowing that one day they would read things about their father online that he believed were false. He said he had cooperated fully with investigators and had made his DNA available to them. He called the accusation a lie, said he had never done anything wrong, and described the entire episode as an attempt to blackmail him for money. He said he felt calm and trusted the justice system. "I know who I am," he told Canal+. "I know I haven't done anything, and I never would." Then came February 24th, 2026. That morning, it was announced that a judge had officially ordered Achraf Hakimi to stand trial in a criminal court. The case would be heard at the Haute-de-Seine Departmental Criminal Court. No date for the trial had been set, but the decision had been made. This was going to court. Within hours, Hakimi posted a statement on X. It read, "Today, a rape accusation is enough to justify a trial, even though I contest it, and everything proves that it is false. It is as unfair to the innocent as it is to sincere victims. I await this trial calmly, which will allow the truth to come out publicly." His lawyer, Fanny Collin, confirmed the trial order in a statement of her own. She immediately announced that she would be filing an appeal against the judge's decision. She said the trial had been ordered based solely on the word of a woman who, according to her, obstructed all investigations, refused all medical examinations and DNA tests, refused to allow her mobile phone to be examined, and refused to give the name of a key witness. She also referenced 2 separate psychological assessments of the plaintiff, both of which she said found a lack of clarity regarding the facts and no signs of post-traumatic symptoms. Collin made it clear that she and Hakimi would pursue every legal avenue available to fight this. The plaintiff's lawyer, Rachel Flor Pardo, responded very differently. She said her client received the news with relief and that the decision was fully consistent with the evidence in the file. Pardo also used the moment to make a broader point that the case was a reminder of how far the global conversation around sexual violence still had to go, especially in professional football. She said there are still areas where the Me Too movement has not yet breached the sound barrier, chiefly in men's football. Just one day later, on February 25th, Hakimi took to the pitch for PSG in their UEFA Champions League knockout round playoff second leg against Monaco. He started the game. PSG had won the first leg 3-2 at Monaco's Stade Louis II, with Hakimi himself scoring the equaliser in that match. Luis Enrique, PSG's head coach, was asked at his press conference ahead of the Monaco game whether the trial news changed anything for the team or whether Hakimi remained vice-captain. His answer, "This is in the hands of the justice system. Nothing more, nothing less." The image was striking. One of the best footballers in the world stepping onto the pitch just 24 hours after a rape trial had been ordered against him, with millions watching on television as if it were just another Champions League night. For some, that was proof the football world doesn't take these matters seriously enough. For others, it was a reflection of the fact that a trial order is not a conviction, that in a legal system built on the presumption of innocence, a player has a right to continue his career until a verdict is reached. Because here is what is important to understand about where this case currently stands. Hakimi has not been convicted of anything. A trial has been ordered, but a trial date has not yet been set. His lawyer is planning to appeal the decision to go to trial. The French legal process is still ongoing, but what is also true is that French law is serious about rape. If Hakimi is found guilty, he faces up to 15 years in prison. That is not a fine. That is not a ban. That is the kind of sentence that would end everything. His career, his reputation, his freedom, and the allegation itself is not something that can be easily dismissed. There are real-time messages from that night. There is a second woman who described similar behavior from Hakimi earlier that same evening. There is a contradiction between what Hakimi told investigators and what he reportedly told Mbappé. These are the kinds of details that convinced a prosecutor, after 2.5 years of investigation, that this case needed to go before a judge and a court. At the same time, the defense has raised genuine questions. There was no medical examination of the alleged victim. She declined twice. Her phone was not given to investigators. She would not name a key witness. There were those messages between her and Jade that the defense argues suggest a scheme to extract money from Hakimi. Hakimi's lawyer says his DNA was provided and available, and that the investigation ultimately found elements that support him. None of this means the trial outcome is predetermined. It means this is exactly the kind of complicated, contested case that courts exist to resolve. It is also worth noting what the psychological assessments found. 2 separate evaluations of the plaintiff were carried out during the investigation. Both, according to Fanny Collin, found what she described as a lack of clarity about the events. However, both assessments also found no tendency toward fabrication or insincerity in the plaintiff's account. The second assessment, carried out in 2024, reportedly concluded that Hakimi probably had no visibility into Emma's inner dialogue at the time, which raises its own set of difficult questions about communication, consent, and what each person believed was happening in that apartment. These are exactly the kinds of nuances that make cases like this so hard to resolve outside a courtroom, and exactly why the court process exists. What makes all of this harder to watch is knowing who Hakimi is, or rather, who he was supposed to be. This is a man who grew up poor, a man whose parents sacrificed everything to give him a shot at a different life, a man who represented Morocco at the World Cup and turned an entire continent into believers when the Atlas Lions marched all the way to the semi-finals in 2022, a man who scored a Panenka penalty against Spain in the round of 16 and became a national hero overnight, the kind of footballer who makes kids in Madrid and Casablanca and Paris dream that they can do it too. And that story was real. The poverty was real. His mother is cleaning homes. His father is selling things on the street. The 8-year-old kid who joined La Fabrica and spent over a decade becoming the player he was always meant to be. None of that disappears because of what is happening now, but none of what is happening now disappears because of that story either. These things exist at the same time, and it is uncomfortable to sit with both of them simultaneously. That discomfort is exactly what makes cases like this so difficult for fans, for the media, and for the sport itself. And that's what makes this moment so complicated. Because if Hakimi is innocent, if he is telling the truth, and this truly was an orchestrated attempt to extort money from him, then he is a man being put through a publicly humiliating process for something he didn't do, and the damage to his name is already done. But if the woman is telling the truth, then she is someone who went through a deeply traumatic experience, walked into a police station, tried to stay quiet, and has spent 3 years watching one of the world's most famous footballers continue to celebrate and be celebrated while her case worked its way through the courts. Both possibilities carry enormous weight. As of now, no trial date has been set. Hakimi's lawyer is appealing. PSG has not removed him from the squad. Morocco has not dropped him from the national team. He is still set to play at the 2026 FIFA World Cup, where Morocco will face Scotland, Haiti, and Brazil in the group stage. The football machine keeps turning, but the truth is, the story of Achraf Hakimi, once so clean, so inspiring, so easy to celebrate, will never be told the same way again. Every goal he scores from here on out will come with an asterisk in people's minds. Every time his name appears on a team sheet, a segment of the world will wonder. And when that trial finally does happen, whenever it is, the world will be watching. The football community has spent years being forced to reckon with difficult questions about accountability and power. This case is the latest and loudest reminder that those questions don't go away just because someone can cross a ball with their right foot better than anyone on earth. For now, we wait. Justice moves slowly, but it does move, and somewhere in Paris, a trial date is coming. When it does, nothing about how we talk about Achraf Hakimi will ever be the same again. What do you think is going to happen when this case finally reaches trial? Do you think Hakimi will be found guilty, or will the defense's arguments hold up in court? Let us know your thoughts in the comments section, and before you leave, don't forget to like this video and subscribe to Goal Rivals so you don't miss the next ones.